Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanasana Salakaya Sakshvanvaritam Yena Tasmai Shri Namah Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svamrupgadamyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shiro Shiyuda Padakamalam Shirum Vaishnavamsa Shirupam Jagajatam Saganarachnatam Vitam Tam Sajivan Satvaitam Savaduttam Parjana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganalita Shivshakam Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jatpate Gopesha Goprakanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kanchna Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamama Haripriye Vankha Kalptabhisha Kripa Sindhvevisha Patinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarani Srila Prabhupada Ki. So today we will discuss Canto 3, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, from text 15 till 29. In the last session we heard in the first 3 verses how devotee expressed that she wanted liberation. She was sick of being tossed around by the senses, controlled by material nature. So she wanted to get liberated from suffering of this material world. And then, yes, this was text 5 to 11, that devotee request Kapila Muni to get over ignorance, remove her false ego. Now, Kapila Muni will now explain the basic principles of the Sankhya philosophy and the need to perform tapasya to purify our consciousness from lust. And then we can understand transcendental knowledge and move from the conditioned to the liberated position. That here is our list of points of the 25th chapter, which we went over last time. So we discussed last time the results of being entangled from Maya, and then the process to become free from Maya. We explained what Maya really is. Maya means we have identified with the body and with all the bodily relationships that now devotee takes shelter of Kapila Dev, Lord Kapila, and she requests him, please cut this tree of material existence. That so after hearing his mother's questions, Kapila Muni start to speak that and then he start to say that the highest system of yoga is the system from which we become detached from happiness and distress from both in this material world. Of course, Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, highest system is Bhakti Yoga. And then now, after that, Kapila Muni will start to explain. First he will explain the goal of Sankhya, that which he has in the first verse, of course, already, he has already indicated in the first verse he spoke, that where he says, yes, the highest yoga system is which goes to detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world. So that's the first goal of Sankhya. That's not the ultimate goal. So now we will continue hearing about the Sankhya from Kapila Muni, and hear about all these principles that breaks our material attachment and award success in devotional service. Now we will go to the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Here is the verse, first verse of today. And the first verse will explain two types of consciousness: Maya consciousness and Krishna consciousness. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shitakalasya Bandhaya Muktaye Chatmano Matam Gunesha Saktam Bandhaya Rattam Vapumsi Muktaye. Can someone read the translation, please?
The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation.
Yes, the Krishna consciousness, the consciousness of liberation. There the Cheta, the mind or the consciousness, is transferred to Krishna, attached to Krishna. And that's the path for liberation, Kapila says. But at the other side there is Maya consciousness, and that involves attachment to the three modes, goodness, passion and ignorance. And that means attachment for material enjoyment. That becomes central in the consciousness. Attachment for material enjoyment. And it's the cause of material life, Kapila Dev explains. So first he explains the problem that is Sankhya is going to solve, to extract us from this attraction to matter and make the Cheta, the consciousness, come attached to Krishna. Text 16. Aham mana bimanotai Kamaloba dibirmalai Fitam yata manasudam Adukkam asukam mama samam. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and the body possession as mine, one's minds become purified. In that pure state, it transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. So the problem is I and mine. in the consciousness. It means kama and lobha. That these are the symptoms of material existence. Kapila Dev said, kama and lobha. Everyone desires to possess something. So desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and conscience also becomes free, and one attains their original state. So it looks simple, just get rid of ein mind. But this ein mind is deep-rooted, is in our false ego. And it is very difficult to get rid of them. So whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and the consciousness. The difference between the conditional life and the liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. So that's purification. So when they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. So purify the mind and the consciousness can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. There Bhakti Yoga comes in now. Yes, the problem is this ein mind. How can we remove it? Only by Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means acting as a soul in service to Krishna. Conditioned life means acting as the body, ein mind. So Narada Pancharatta, there it's stated that one's mind and senses should be purified. Sarvo bhati vinirmuktam tat paret vrna nirmalam Rishikena Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. So one engages one's senses in pleasing the transcendental senses of the Lord. And that is the process to give up these upadis, this false identification. So the mind, to control the mind and to purify the mind, it must have some constant engagement. One moment the mind is not engaged in Krishna consciousness, it becomes contaminated again. So one cannot make the mind vacant. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind is not engaged in Krishna, it will be engaged in Maya. So that's what also in the 6th chapter said. Putrat atmanatmanam atmanam avasadyat atmeva atmanapando atveva atmeva ripur atmana. With the mind you can degrade yourself or uplift for yourself. It can be your enemy or your friend. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yanatmanatmanat chitta anatmastu satratve vartatatmava. The mind is your friend when it's controlled, and it's your enemy when it's uncontrolled. So here it said, the mind which is controlled as an engagement in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise the mind is uncontrolled. And that's very important for all of us to understand. Always engage the mind in service of Krishna. And that will purify one. If the mind is engaged in Krishna consciousness. When our mind is engaged in Krishna, then there is no chance of entrance of material desires and greed. There's no possibility for new contamination. Krishna in the mind is antiseptic, prophylactic. Antiseptic, it's purifying the heart, and it's prophylactic, no new contamination can come in. It acts as a vaccine. So that is point 16, verse 16, 17. Tada purusha atmanam kevalam prakriti param Nirantaram Swayam Jyotir Animanam Akanditam. Can someone read the translation, please?
Dear Maharaj,
Please do.
at that time the soul can see himself to be transcendental to the material existence, always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size.
So, it is said here, Srila Prabhupada writes in the beginning, in the state of pure consciousness or Krishna consciousness, one can see himself as a minute particle, non-different from the Supreme. So, Mamaivam Sochi Veloki Jiva Buddha Sanatana, 15.7 Bhagavad Gita. So, that's a strong argument against Mayavadi philosophy. The spirit soul cannot be divided. So Mayavadi philosophy enunciates that the whole spirit exists, but a part of it, which is called the jiva, is entrapped by illusion. This philosophy, however, is unacceptable because spirit cannot be divided like a fragment of matter. A part of the jiva is eternally a part. As long as the Supreme Spirit exists, its part and parcel also exist. As long as the sun exists, the molecules of the sun's rays also exist. The jiva is an eternal part. It's 1/10,000th of a point of a hair. It's infinitesimal. But the Supreme Spirit is infinite. It's all-pervading. But Jiva and the Supreme Spirit, they are both equal in quality. They are not different in quality. So the Spirit Soul is animanam, infinitesimal, and the Supreme Spirit is all-pervading. So no one can separate the molecular parts of the sunshine from the sun. But at the same time, the molecular part of the sunshine is not as expansive as the sun itself. Similarly, the living entity, by its constitutional position, is qualitatively the same as the Supreme Spirit, but he is infinitesimal. Good. That's Sankhya Analysis 18. Jnanavaraja yuktena bhakti yuktena satmana paripasyat udashinam pragatim sa arojasam. In that position of self-realization, by the practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully on him. So here it's about the spirit soul in the position of self-realization. So Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport, yes, the illusionary energy can act on a weaker or conditioned soul, but not on a liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of the liberated state. One understands this constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya, renunciation. So without knowledge, one cannot have realization. So the realization that one is an infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes him unattached to materially conditioned life. So that's an important point. We many times said, yeah, you're here, I'm not a body. I'm a spirit soul different from the body. But realizing that, if you have really understood that, if you have really understood that, then you become unattached to the material life, to matter. So, and Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, that is the beginning of devotional service. It means we have to purify ourselves before we can really practice devotional service. We have to purify ourselves even before we get these realizations. That appears, we have learned in the second canto of Brahma did tapa, austerities in devotional service for a long time. And then after he did it for a long time, then Tene Brahmaridaya Adakavi, then he got the knowledge to the heart. So Krishna was waiting until he became purified. So unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in the service of the Lord. Because the Lord is the supreme pure, we must be pure to engage in his service. So does that mean that we first have to practice yoga and then become liberated and then we do devotional service? No. No, the devotional service means it's the means to become purified and the goal at the same time. But the devotion will only come when the heart is purified. Before it's merely external. But we have to do it, follow all the rules and vidis and given by the spiritual master to purify us, because that will attract Krishna's mercy, and then we will become purified. And then jnana vairagya yuktana, when one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position, I'm a servant of Krishna, and is in the renounced order, is detached from this world, then pure devotional service. Then by pure devotional service, one can engage oneself as a loving servant of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the foreword here, paripashyati. He can see everything in the right perspective, Srila Prabhupada said. Then the influence of material nature has become almost nil. So this is which level is that? 1854, Srila Prabhupada said, Brahma Bhuta Pashanatma Shostina Kankshati. That then one has realized I'm spirit different from the body. And it becomes happy and free from the influence of material nature and peaceful, and then is freed from lamentation and hankering. And then mad bhaktim labate param. So that's the position where the real state begins, devotional service. Then mad bhaktim labate param. Then devotional service is attained. So this is not new what we learn here. It's in Bhagavad Gita, but we understand it more deeply. So it is confirmed in the it is confirmed in Narada Pancharatma that when the senses are purified, they can be engaged in devotional service of the Lord. So this is a warning that we find here, and Srila Prabhupada gives us warning at the end. One who is attached to material contamination cannot be a devotee. So Krishna wants to help us, but he can only help us if we want to give up that enjoyment. If we don't want to give that enjoyment, Krishna cannot help us. We must want it. That text. 19. Nachuchamanaya bhaktya bhagavat akhilatmani satrishosti siva panta yoganam brahma siddhaye. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For that is the only auspicious path. So this is very conclusive in the Sankhya philosophy of Kapila Dev. So give up all these other yogi practices, engage in devotional service. It's the only auspicious path, he says. So devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the super soul of everything, is the only reliable path of self-realization. Because the other paths, like Astanga or the jnana yogis, that can bring you to liberation in the sense that you realize I'm not this body. But then who am I? Your real identity is not realized. So that's a partial realization. And then that's the yogi. The yogi realizes the super soul. It's nice to realize the super soul, nice, and you have darshan, let's be ecstatic. You have, and the heart is free. You are liberated from the influence of material nature, very good, but still you stay in this material world. To go to the spiritual world, you need this bhakti. Zonder bhakti, ananya bhakti, no entrance in the spiritual world. So what's the solution? So therefore, to get out of these clutches of matter, the only auspicious path is bhakti. That Brahma Siddhaye, Srila Prabhupada said, means to understand oneself to be different from matter, to understand oneself to be Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi. But Brahma Siddhi means that one should know that he is not matter, he is a spirit soul. Every yogi is supposed to be engaged in self-realization or Brahman realization, but unless one is fully engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot have an easy approach to the path of Brahma Siddhi. Why is the path of bhakti the only auspicious path? One of the reasons has been given in 127 of the Bhagavatam. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Payochita Yanyatya Sivarahyam Jnanam Sayat Ahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, causeless knowledge and detachment from the world is attained. So a devotee does not have to try separately for spiritual knowledge and renunciation of this world. By one's service attitude, everything is revealed. Therefore it's Shiva Panta, the only auspicious path for self-realization. So-called Brahman realization, or realization of Brahma Jyoti, that's not really Brahma Siddhi. Beyond the Brahma Jyoti, there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti necessitates the existence of the recipients of devotional service, and the devotee will render service. So Brahma Siddhi here is attained to devotional service, is realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not a perfect state of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization. In Brahman realization, real Brahman realization means realizing Parabrahman. There is Parabrahman. And as Brahman, particle of Brahman, it is my duty to engage in the service of Parabrahman, because the Brahman particle is a part and parcel of the Parabrahman. So, the understanding of the effulgent rays of the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not the perfect stage of Brahma Siddhi or Brahman realization, because Brahman is effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's his energy. And also the realization of Paramatma, of the Supreme Person, is not perfect. Only Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is Akhilatma. He is also the Super Soul. So one who realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead realizes the other features, namely the Paramatma feature, the Brahman feature, and the total realization of that is Brahma Siddhi. So that's Prabhupada's comment based on the previous acharyas. And now Kapiladev becomes very practical. And the verse now is a key verse of this chapter. Two key verses, verse 20 and 25. And I would advise you, if you want to preach Krishna consciousness, memorize these two verses, 20 and 25. It's very powerful. Pashangamacham pashamatmana kavyo vidu saiva sadhusukrito mokshatvarma pavritam. Can someone please read the translation?
Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self realized devotees, opens the door of liberation.
Thank you so much. Yes. What's the lesson here is that attachment cannot be killed. It has to be transferred. That's also mentioned. We heard that also in the 3rd chapter, in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada mentions there, yes, we cannot be inactive, because was the action of the soul, it must be attached to something. If attachment means desire, if there is no desire, no attachment, one is like a stone, dead. No, attachment must be there. It cannot be killed, Srila Prabhupada said, but it has to be transferred. So attachment to material things is the cause of our conditioning, material consciousness. But attachment for Krishna or his devotee is the cause for liberation. So consciousness is the platform of attachment. The desireless is not possible for a living entity. A living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. It has this propensity for attachment, cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Therefore, those who want to merge with Brahman, they want to merge with Brahman, and yes, suppose they attain this, which is very rare, and they are, of course, they are not merging that, but they are attaining Brahman. because the soul cannot be killed, cannot be split, cannot merge. Suppose you attain Brahman. That attaining Brahman, this so-called merging, is like a green bird in a green foliage of a tree, and you see the green bird entering the foliage, and it's all green, you don't see it anymore. It became one, but it's still there. But if one merges with Brahman, and one gets liberated, one gets peace after so much suffering, and it feels good, so peaceful. But after some 10,000 years, peaceful, there is no activity. And it's boring. So they want to come back to the material world. And this impersonalist cannot go to the spiritual world because they don't accept Krishna. You need bhakti for that. So they have to come back to the material world. Aruna Krishna Prampatam Pada, Srila Prabhupada said. They are coming back again to perform activities. So a living entity by constitution has the propensity to be attached to something. That propensity to be attached cannot be stopped. It must be utilized for the best purpose. So here it is recommended that attachment should go to the sadhu. But who is a sadhu? So a sadhu or a mahatma. Mahatmanas tu Mahaprata Devim Prakati Ashrita. The Mahatma is one who connects with the divine energy. How does a Mahatma do that? Satatam Kirtiyantamam Yatanta Shatritavata. With great determination, they are engaged in devotional service, glorifying the Supreme Lord. So a sadhu is a devotee. It's a sadhu in Bhagavad Gita describes it. It's someone who is with unflinching faith and determination who engage in devotional service. And about such a sadhu, Krishna says, sadhu eva samandavya, that everyone is want to follow, even if one is found to follow the most strict rules and regulations in devotional service. If he has unflinching faith, he's a sadhu, Krishna says. He's to be understood to be a sadhu. So a sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. Lord Chaitanya said, Lava matra sadhu sangha sarvasita hoy. So simply by a lava, a moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain perfection. So Mahatma is a synonym of a sadhu, and a sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. So service to a Mahatma or an elevated devotee of the Lord, in the teachings of King Rishabhadev is described as Tvaram, a door, Ahur Vimukte. There is a royal road for liberation. Matsevant Varam Ahur Vimakte Tamov the Varam Yoshitam Sangha Sangram. So rendering service to the materialist has the opposite effect. So if one offers service to a materialist or a person engaged in sense gratification, then by association with such a person, the door to hell is open. So attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord. Because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, how to become a worshipper and sincere servitor of the Lord. So that is what the sadhu gives. It gives. The sadhu will give instructions on how to cut this knot of material contamination, of material attraction, and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. So the path of liberation begins with association of a sadhu. And what is a sadhu? A sadhu is described in text 21, which is also a verse quoted many times by Srila Prabhupada. A key verse, can someone read I first read the Sanskrit. Titiksava kaunika suridam sarvadenam achata satrasata sadava sadhu bhushana. Can someone read the translation, please?
The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime.
Thank you. So a sadhu is a devotee of the Lord. His concern is to enlighten people in devotional service to the Lord. So without devotional service, human life is spoiled. But what are the preaching of a sadhu? A sadhu will say, be Krishna conscious, be a devotee of Lord Krishna. Don't spoil your life in simply fulfilling all these animal propensities. Human life is meant for self-realization of Krishna consciousness. So a sadhu is not satisfied with his own liberation, but he thinks always about the others, or the welfare of others. We will hear that also in the 7th canto of Prahlad Maharaj. He says to Lord Nrsimhadev, "Oh my Lord Nrsimhadev, I'm not afraid of material existence, but because I'm in full Krishna consciousness. But I feel compassion for all those who are engaged in this Maya Sukha, in trying to exploit this illusory energy, this material energy. I feel great compassion for such fools." So a sadhu is not satisfied with his own liberation. He always wants to think about others. He is the most compassionate for all liberated souls. Think of Srila Prabhupada going to America at the age of 70. It's unbelievable. So a sadhu is karunika. He offers mercy to the fallen souls. So while engaged in preaching work, he has to meet with so many opposing elements, and therefore the sadhu, or devotee of the Lord, has to be very tolerant. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport speaks about different great personalities that so we'll see here. So someone may ill-treat him because the conditioned souls are prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotion, are not prepared to receive the transcendental knowledge of devotional service. Sometimes devotees are personally attacked with violence. Lord Jesus Christ was crucified, Haridas Thakur was caned in 22 marketplaces, and Lord Chaitanya's principal assistant, Nityananda, was violently attacked by Jagai and Madai. So, Sarvadenam, they were treating all living entities in such a way that they can get salvation from material entanglements. It is Srila Prabhupada writes, even Shivananda Sena, one of the followers of Lord Chaitanya, he treated the dog transcendentally. So Shivananda Sena, he organized always a trip of the Bengali devotees to Orissa, and he arranged for everything, their food, their accommodation, and when they had to cross the river he paid the toll for the boat, and he was also paying the toll for a dog that came with them. And he was feeding the dog every day, prasad. And one day, they forgot to feed the dog. The devotee responsible forgot, and then the dog left. And Shivananda Sena was very upset, but when they arrived at Jagannath Puri, they saw Lord Chaitanya was throwing Mahaprasad to this dog. And this dog was very happy, but next day the dog left his body and got a full-round form back to Vaikuntha. So no one can be more friendly than a sadhu, because he's relieving the conditioned soul. A sadhu is calm and he quietly follows the principles of the scriptures. A sadhu is one who follows the principles of the scriptures and at the same time is a devotee of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada says. One who actually follows the principles of scriptures must be a devotee of God, because all the Shastras instruct us to obey by the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will continue another 10 minutes and then have a pause. Text 22. Mai anyena bhavena bhaktin kurvanti tritam matkrite tyakta karmanas tyaktras fajana bandhava. So more elaboration on a sadhu. Can someone read the translation, please?
Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world.
Thank you. So a sannyasi renounces everything for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of life. So a sadhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. So he is not punished for renunciation of such obligation. There is a verse in 11th canto which also confirms that. But if one renounces for sense gratification, if for sense gratification a person renounces all such obligation, is punished by the laws of nature. So we have so many duties towards the scriptures, towards the sages who gives us the scriptures, and towards the mother which gives us the body, the father, so many obligations to the demigods. But if we are fully engaged in devotional service, in the preaching work, then one is not punished for such renunciation. 23. Madasraya katanishta shivanti katayanti cha tapanti vividastapa naitan mat katasheta shaka. Someone read translation, please.
Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities.
So here it is explained that our sadhu is not disturbed by miserable conditions. And these miserable conditions are those pertaining to the body, the mind, and those imposed by other living entities, and those imposed by natural disturbances, So Adidaivika, Adhyatmika, Adhibhaudika. Because his mind is always filled with Krishna consciousness. And thus he does not like to talk about anything but activities of the Lord. That he doesn't take all these issues in this world too serious. So what does it mean always? Because his mind is always filled with Krishna. Savaimana Krishna Padarvindeyo Vavsachams Vakund Hunanavarnane. So sadhus are only interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord of his devotees. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful of material miseries. No time to think about it. Ordinary conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always full of anxieties. So that is a sadhu. We have 3 verses, characteristics of sadhu, heard. And now text 24 will stress again the importance of association with the sadhu. Ta ete sadhava sattvi sarvasanga vivarchita sangaste satate prachtya sangadosha hara hite. Can someone read the translation?
O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment.
Pernicious effect of material attachment. So what must we do to be free from material attachment? We should increase our attachment to the sadhus, the devotees who are completely free from all material attachment. So if we are suffering, we must remember that. Increase your attachment to hearing from Srila Prabhupada, to reading his books, to associating with devotees, to increase our absorption in deity worship, all these things. And especially hearing from the sadhus and serving the mission of the sadhus. Then we can become free from all material attachment. So who is free to go back to Godhead? Bhagavad Gita, who is qualified to go back to Godhead? It's explained in the 15th chapter, so text 5, there you have the symptoms of the liberated person, nirmama moha sita sangha dosha. So this refers to one who is completely free from the puffed up condition of material possessions. The word moha means the false understanding that one is rich or poor. The conception that one is rich or poor is false, because this body itself is false. False means temporary. So to be freed from material entanglement, one must be free from the association of material nature. Chitta Sangha Dosha, one should be free from the contaminated association of material nature. A pure devotee is preparing to transfer himself to the spiritual kingdom, and so such a pure devotee is also free from the 3 modes of material nature. If one has reached that state where he must become free from this material contamination, then he has to seek the association of devotees and cultivate exclusively Krishna consciousness, because a devotee is free from all contaminated material association. He is not affected by the miseries of this material world. How is it possible? Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy of the cat carrying kittens in her mouth. And when she kills a rat, she also carries the body in her mouth. One should give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of persons engaged in Krishna consciousness. So by the words and instructions of Krishna conscious persons, he will be able to cut off his attachment to material existence. So we must seek association with devotees. But what's the essence of this association with devotees? That process is explained in text 5:25, which is another key verse. Shatam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavantirit karna rasayana kata tatyosanas abhavarga vartvani shadarati bhaktir anukramishati. Can someone read the translation and the purport, please?
In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and therefore he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begins. Purport. The process of advancing in Krishna consciousness and devotional service is described here. The first point is that one must seek the association of persons who are Krishna conscious and who engage in devotional service. Without such association, one cannot make advancement. Simply by theoretical knowledge or study, one cannot make any appreciable advancement. One must give up the association of materialistic persons and seek the association of devotees, because without the association of devotees, one cannot understand the activities of the Lord. Generally, people are convinced of the impersonal feature of the Absolute Truth because they do not associate with devotees. They cannot understand that the Absolute Truth can be a person and have personal activities. This is very difficult subject matter. And unless one has personal understanding of the Absolute Truth, there is no meaning to devotion. Service or devotion cannot be offered to anything impersonal. Service must be offered to a person. Non-devotees cannot appreciate Krishna consciousness by reading, cannot understand the transcendental. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I moved it. Yeah.
Non-devotees cannot appreciate Krishna consciousness by reading the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other Vedic literature wherein the activities of the Lord are described. They think that these activities are fictional, manufactured stories because spiritual life is not explained to them in the proper mood. To understand the personal activities of the Lord, one has to seek the association of devotees. And by such association, when one contemplates and tries to understand the transcendental activities of the Lord, the path to liberation is open and he is freed. One who has firm faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes fixed, and his attraction for association with the Lord and the devotees increases. Association with devotees means association with the Lord. The devotee who makes this association develops the consciousness for rendering service to the Lord, and then being situated in the transcendental position of devotional service, he gradually becomes perfect. Hare Krishna.
So that's the process that satam prasangam, one becomes attached to hearing from these pure devotees, And what? Hearing about what? Mama Virya Sambido, these powerful pastimes of the Lord. Bhavantrit Karna Rasayana Kata, it goes to the ear, to the heart, and there it is relished. And then one is of the path of liberation. And that path goes from Shradi, Shraddha, Rati, Bhaktir, Anukramishatiya. It begins with faith, and then when one engages in devotional service, right in that process of hearing, becomes purified, one becomes attracted to Krishna, and then develops love for Krishna. So that is the process described here by Kapila Muni. So, and in the text 26 till 29, it will be explained, if we follow this process nicely, what will happen. So we will pause now for 10 minutes. It's 10 to 7, and we are resuming at 19 hours Delhi time, or 7 p.m. in 10 minutes. Thank you. Hare Krishna, we can resume and go over the last 4 verses. This is verse 26. Bhaktya mama pumam chataviraga aindriyat Krishta shrutan mat rachanano sintaya Sitasya tohane yoga yukto Yatisyate ritshubir yoga margai. Can someone read the translation, please?
Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind.
Yes, that's the real control of the mind. So Srila Prabhupada writes, in all scriptures people are encouraged to act in a pious way so that they can enjoy sense gratification not only in this life but also in the next. But the devotee in the association of devotees prefers to contemplate the activities of the Lord, how he has created this universe, how he is maintaining it, how the creation dissolves, and how in the spiritual kingdom the Lord's pastimes are going on. They are described in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma Samhita, many other scriptures. The result is that he feels distaste for so-called happiness in this or that world, in heaven or other planets. Devotees are simply interested in being transferred to the personal association of the Lord. They have no attraction for temporary so-called happiness. That's the position of one who is in yoga yukta. That one who is fixed in mystic power is not disturbed by the allurements of this world or that world, is interested in a matter of spiritual understanding or the spiritual situation. Then it should be very easy. Devotional service is the easiest process, and the result is sublime. Text 27. Asevayayam pragate gunanam yanena varahya vichimbitena yogena maye arpitaya sabhaktya mam pratyah atmanam iha varunde. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge and renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in the devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life, for I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. So, if one engages, Srila Prabhupada said, in one of these 9 kinds of bhakti, he naturally has no opportunity to engage in the service of the 3 modes of nature. Unless one has good engagement in spiritual service, it's not possible to get out of the attachment to material service. Therefore, service is beyond the boundary of sense gratification. It is a complete spiritual activity. When one engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, naturally does not get any opportunity to engage in sense gratification. Krishna conscious activities are not performed blindly, but with perfect understanding of knowledge and renunciation. This kind of yoga practice, in which the mind is always fixed upon the Supreme Personality of God in devotion, results in liberation in this very life. The person who performs such acts gets in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one meekly and submissively hears about the activities of the Lord from a realized soul, we will be able to conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is unconquerable by any other process. Hearing or associating with devotees is the most important function of self-realization. Text 28. Now, devotee will ask a question. Devahuti uvacha kvashitvaya ushita bhakti kitrisha mama gocha chaya padam te nirvanam anyasan vashnava aham. So can someone read, please?
On hearing this statement of the Lord, Devhuti inquired, "What kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet?" Hare Krishna.
The Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that Jnana Yoga, their goal is attaining Brahman, the Brahman effulgence. Hatha Yogas, they are trying to realize the super soul. But the Bhakti Yoga, and in devotional service, he practices 9 forms Nava Yoga, Nava Bhakti Yoga, 9 poses of devotional service, Shravana Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam Vandam Dasyam, Atmani Vedanam, that, this says, Padasevanam between, These are 9 practices. There's the verse that Prahlad Maharaj speaks to his father Hiranyakashipu, who did not like it very much. Hearing, chanting, offering prayers, worshipping to the Lord in the temple, accepting service, and carrying out the orders of the Lord, making friendship with the Lord, and surrendering everything to Him. So, Srila Prabhupada is very clear here. Nirvanatman means unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. So that's Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga is the end of material existence. End of material existence can only get that by the process of devotional service. And he explains the jnanis, they are elevated to Brahman, but there is a chance of falling down. So therefore, Jnana Yoga does not actually end material existence. It's a partial realization. The activity of the soul is not there. The activity of the soul is serving the Supreme Lord. And the Hatha Yoga system, we have seen Hatha Yoga system. Vishvamitra, who was allured by Menaka, fell down, also not perfect. But the Bhakti Yogas, they never come down to the material world, Srila Prabhupada said. And that is confirmed by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Upon going there, one never comes down. Tyaktvadyam punarjanma 90 means, never come down. After giving up the body, they never come back to accept the material body again. So nirvana does not really end material existence. Let's read 29, the last verse. Yo yogo bhagavatpano nirvanatman stvajyotita kitrisha katasangani yatas tattva tat Yattastattva Vabodhanam. Can someone read the translation?
The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga?
Yes, there are many ways out there by which one can understand in truth that supreme yoga. That so Srila Prabhupada makes a point: nirvana. Attaining of nirvana does not finish the existence of the soul. That explained in the purport also. That the soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means going back home, back to Godhead. That how does the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world? Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is prone to fall down, either from the impersonal Brahman realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. Bhagavad-bhana, that's here, means in Bhagavad-bhana, aiming at the personality of Godhead. That but bhana, Srila Prabhupada said, means an arrow. The Bhakti Yoga system is like an arrow aimed at the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Bhakti Yoga system never aims towards impersonal Brahman realization or Paramatma. This bhana or arrow is so sharp and swift that it goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the regions of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Now let's go back first to I think so these were the points we discussed. The goal of Sankhya and material existence, the principle that breaks material attachment and our success, attachment to sadhu, transfer our attachment, explain the relationships of varieties of liberation to bhakti, that we will discuss tomorrow in the last section. That good. So please let me know any questions or comments, please.
So Maharaj, the standard of devotional service is very high and very difficult, is what I see. Like verse 16, when one is completely cleansed of impurities of lust and greed, reduced from I and mine, then he transcends. So it's not easy at all. It's very, very difficult.
Well, the devotional service, as long as we are not on the platform of liberation, we are practicing, we are practicing, exercising to come there. It's like I explained already before, I think. It's like we get a play toy kitchen as a kid, and we are imitating the mother in cooking, but it's not really cooking, but we are doing it. and that purifies us, and we will then become real cooks later. But there are 2 points that I want to add to that. Is in Bhagavad Gita, in the verse 10.9, in the commentary. In the commentary, Srila Prabhupada writes that in the higher forms of in the higher levels of devotional service, when the heart is pure, one feels love and ecstasy. But in the beginning state of devotional service, one feels already inner satisfaction. Inner satisfaction will already be there. Not the great ecstasy. Because factually, maybe after reading all this, we must revise our expectations in devotional service and come to the point, yes, it's not so easy, but let me serve the Lord. Birth after birth, it doesn't matter whether I'm not liberated of Nima, but I'm going to serve the Lord. And if you come to that expectation, then Krishna is going to reciprocate with that. So it's part of our purification process. But in devotional service, Krishna says, even we perform a little, it will first protect you against all danger. And the second point is, whatever your advancement you make, there is never diminution. You keep it for next life. So it's gained for everything. So it remains the best business, although it is true, it's not so easy that real devotion means, yes, your lust and greed must come from the heart. Right, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Something else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have one thing related to 18 and purport.
Yeah.
Yep. When the living entity has self-realization, he sees himself clearly. Does he also sees that ignorance doesn't affect him? He sees avidya as well, distinct from him, and he sees that avidya has never really affected him. Because avidya, in what sense does it affect the soul? It covers the soul, but it doesn't change its nature, because the soul remains unchanging. So when he sees himself, is that like he's seeing like two separate things? He sees himself and then he sees avidya, which is an aspect of the material nature that covers his true identity. So does that mean that he has this clear understanding, or this is ignorance, avidya?
Let's go back to the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 7, text 5, 6. Verse 4. 174. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranite male apasyat purusham purnam mayam satatapasram. So this is the realization of Srila Vyasadeva, who fixed his mind with devotion on the Lord. He had devotion. What did he see? He's telling us what he sees. He sees, does he fix his mind? Perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service without any tinge of materialism. So he's pure. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was full under his control. That's the first thing he saw. He saw there is Krishna and there is his external energy. He could make the difference. And what does he see further? In 175. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. So he sees the living entities in this world were conditioned and how they identify and identify with the body. They think they are material project. And what does he see? The material miseries of the living entities are superfluous to him. So superfluous means, yeah, it's not a real thing. It's the body who suffers, but they are identifying with the mind and the body, and that can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotion and service. Because he realized it, then you don't suffer anymore because you see the reality. But the mass of people does not know it, and therefore Vyasadeva compiled this Vedakalitsa, the Bhagavatam, and so on. So these are the realizations of Vyasadeva. Does that help?
It helps a lot. Actually, I couldn't connect, even though we know this verse by heart, Shakshat, Bhakti Yoga Madhoksha, I couldn't connect it, but it's very nice how it's beautifully connected.
Yeah, thank
you. It's very nice. Thank you. Sometimes it's very hard we are looking at this, and when we were studying this, it was clear in my mind, and now looking at this here, it just, but then to have a complete integrated picture of everything, this is one of the challenges I follow. I try to, and
things
so
fall in place little by little.
Yes. That's why we need teachers.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So, Patrick, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Pranam. My question was that somewhere I am not getting the verse. I was searching for the verse, but in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that a sadhu is not one who is strictly, Prabhupada writes strictly following rules and regulations, but is a devotee of, but is following devotional principles of devotion. So that was my confusion. That it is little paradoxical to me, because following devotional principles accompany that we follow the rules and regulations strictly. So what does that mean, Maharaj?
Yeah, this what mentioned there is sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. That's the definition for a sadhu. But even if he strict follows, he may sometimes deviate from it by the influence of the material nature. And by that he falls by accident. And Krishna says still is still a sadhu, is still a devotee, even if he has these difficulties. So that's what Srila Prabhupada is saying, that we try to follow strictly the principles of devotional service. If we become liberated and we attain devotion for Krishna, then one is a real sadhu. And then one does not need to follow these rules and regulations anymore. When one has spontaneous love for Krishna. Like the gopis, they don't need to chant their rounds to remember Krishna. That will go automatically. That's what Srila Prabhupada is explaining there. That because it refers to the verse of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, if a sadhu by accident does some inappropriate action, he's still my devotee, he's still a sadhu. So that's what Prabhupada referring to, what Krishna said. Does that help?
So that is that includes like when we are understanding this whole thing, we are trying to understand sadhus whom we should take association of. So these kind of sadhus also, like Prabhupada is clarifying that even these type of sadhus association is very saintly and very beneficial to us. Is it?
Yes. We have to look who is strictly following. Like in our movement, we have devotees who are practicing for 50 years without falling down. 50 years. 50 years every day chanting rounds and following strictly. So that's a strict follower. From these persons, these sadhus, we can learn that. So that's an important quality. That of course there are the other qualities. The tikshava karunika, that the one who the sadhu is a preacher. That Srila Prabhupada explains. We went to so many characteristics. The tikshava karunika, and is the tikshika. He is tolerant, and we have heard about speaking about Jesus Christ, Haridas Thakur, Nityananda, who tolerated everything. But just by hearing all these qualities of a sadhu, like it's text 20, where all these qualities are described, that Achata Satravasanta, one who is equal to everyone, who has no enemies, that like Yudhishthira Maharaj, he never saw anyone as an enemy. Sadhava, one who follows the scriptures, that all the rules and regulations. So this is the characteristics we must look for, someone who guides us, whom we should take guidance from. This is the qualities of a bona fide spiritual master. And that is what Krishna is explaining, that we must associate with such sadhus. Does that help?
Yes, Maharaj. I have a follow-up question to that to clarify my question earlier. That I was asking that here Lord is answering what kind of sadhus we should associate with to progress. So many times the mentality is that someone who is not really a strict follower of the devotional principles is not considered to be a great sadhu. So my question was in regards to that when well, Prabhupada is mentioning that even one who is not a follower of strict follower, he's following the regulative, but he's not able to follow it strictly, the rules and regulations. Even then,
can you tell me where that is in the purport?
I'm finding this.
Text number 20, Prabhu.
20?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Maharaj. 20
in the purport. Yeah, a sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. That it is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be thus transferred to a sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirms this love matra sadhu sangha, that we went through this. So, but before it is said, a sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who is unflinchingly engaged in devotional service, even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service. If one simply has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is understood to be a sadhu. So you have two kinds of sadhus. Those who are following the principles of devotional service strictly, and the other sadhu is already liberated and he has already developed devotion, spontaneous love for Krishna. He does not have to follow all these rules and regulations. That's what Prabhupada mentions here. It's not about fall down. That it doesn't speak about falling down like in Bhagavad Gita. He says he has unflinching faith. That means a higher level. The Uttam Adhikar. Uttam Adhikar must not chant rounds. That he will not do sinful activities because he's spontaneous attracted to love of God. It's another level. This is the Uttam Adhikar. But still, they will follow to give the example to others. So there is a difference here. Like I said, the gopis, they don't have to chant their rounds. And that's what mentioned here. So that's the way to interpret it and to understand it. And the key word is unflinching faith. Unflinching faith. That's the point, Srila. Because they have unflinching faith as the higher level. Does that help to clarify?
Yes,
Okay.
Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, something else, please.
So Maharaj, from the previous question you were answering, it means that we follow those who are strictly following sadhana or those who are above, more into raganuga and bhava bhakti, because then they don't have to. So we can summarize it like that.
Srila Prabhupada says in Nectar of Instruction, I think it's in verse 5, at the end, one should accept as a spiritual master one who is an Uttam Adhikar, but one can also accept an Madhyam Adhikar spiritual master, but he cannot guide the disciple so well, because he can only guide him to his level. But unfortunately, an Uttam Adhikar, not easy to find. If there is an Uttam Adhikar on this world, maybe not, I don't know. But as a disciple, we have our duty to see our spiritual master as an Uttam Adhikar. Does not mean that he is on that level, but that's our duty. So these things are there, but we can take guidance from everyone who is more advanced than us. Everyone who is a sadhu has realizations and can help us forward. And that's the point made here. Attachment not just to the spiritual master, but also to all other sadhus. And by that we make spiritual advancement. So that's important. So that's those who are engaged in Raganuga Bhakti, they are above the liberated platform. If they are engaging in Raganuga Bhakti and they are not on the liberated platform, they fall down. Something to be very careful with it. Very careful, because that's more sahaja. Anyway, does that help,
Yes, that's a lot of things lots of points to think about in this.
Yeah, sure.
That's really.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's something else.
Maharaj, I would like to go to verse 18.
Sure.
Jnana Vairagyana Yuktena.
Yeah.
Knowledge and Vairagya. So Prabhupada said, without knowledge, one cannot have realization. So, knowledge means we have to be aware of that we are Jivatma, Bhagavan is such and such, we are this, material nature is such and such. We are talking about that knowledge, like symptoms of person in knowledge, like described in 13th chapter, or we are talking about scriptural knowledge. And the second question is Vairagya. What level of Vairagya are we talking about? Like a Grahastha, there's no Vairagya here.
Yeah. I will try to answer your question in a very practical way. And I give that example many times. Like 30 years ago, when a devotee would say something's not so nice about me, I would be disturbed. And sometimes for days, for months sometimes. Now we are 30 years later. If that happened again, I will still be disturbed. 1 minute and then I let it go. So that means there is detachment by realized knowledge after 30 years. This kind of the knowledge here is realized knowledge. It's not just the knowledge. You can read Bhagavad Gita and think you have knowledge, but you have no access to this knowledge until your heart is really pure. And that's the reality. We think we have access to this process, to this knowledge. But it's just a byproduct of devotional service. That's what it is. So it's not something to separately endeavor for. No, it is not that. But just by hearing and so, Krishna gives you the realization through the heart, gradually. And that will happen if we increase our doses of attachment to this hearing from the sadhus. This will finally happen. It's bound to happen. Yeah. Does that help?
Yeah, very nice. Thank you, Mahatma.
Yeah. Sorry.
Maharaj, just a point. Sorry to just I was thinking so many ways. It's like this vairagya is more our ability to tolerate dualities.
The vairagya is
like things happen, in ISKCON, we've been through so many things, and then now it just doesn't bother us whether it is this way or that way, what they say, what they don't say, whether we have Lakshmi, we don't have Lakshmi, whether things are okay, not okay, but we just carry on because it's like that sense of vairagya, which is coming from our being a little bit more, maybe, a few percentage more fixed up in our goal, devotional service. So therefore, that's a byproduct.
Yeah, this vairagya. I must say it when you get older in devotional service and you think, okay. I look at my body, I'm 62, and maybe I will get 70 or something because you feel already things going backwards. So you think, well, what's the use of all these things? Soon I'm getting my suitcase here. I'm on the way out. So what's so you get the realization that you get older, like Prabhupada said. Yes, but when he thinks about how his whole family has rejected him and so on. He was telling about it, I started to laugh. So you don't take these things too serious anymore. And the same with all this politics in this movement. You don't
Yes.
take it so serious anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're trying just to work that, yeah. Anyway,
Thank you. Yeah, nice.
good. Thank you. Good. Then we will finish tomorrow the chapter, this very important chapter. I would advise you hear it a few times again. That recording will be there also. That this is going deep in our heart, and we will benefit very much. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Sai Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.